Hey everyone, it's Aditya, and I'm back in another video. In this video, I want to show some of the more complex mechanics in the game. So I'm going to be playing the Sleight of Hand deck and rematching the AI here. And so we see the AI looks like it's playing the Trader's deck, and we're starting the era Imperial. So this is a good matchup for me because the AI doesn't really salvage in the current form, so it should be an easy win. But let's not get too cocky. Uh, so in the sleight of hand deck, what you're looking to do is generate a lot of tempo and advantage by utilizing the charge system and swapping cards. So one of the big engines for this deck is the Entropy Acolyte. And its Imperial Form ability swaps it with a card in hand and grants its influence. So I'm going to start by using the Entropy Acolyte. And one cool UI thing I want to show is if you long press your action orb, you can undo an action like this. So that's just a thing to do as you're thinking through your turns. So I'm going to confirm, and I'm going to swap in the Star Seer. So you can see my Entropy Acolyte gained 3 influence. It used up my charge. You get 1 charge every round, and the Star Seer is now on the board. So the AI chooses to use the Wayfinder and swaps out Data for Magistrate Mallow. So pretty bulky guy here, Magistrate Mallow. He's definitely part of the win condition for the deck, where you want to stack up his power by like discarding relics, for example, but then also keep enough relics in hand where you can use his reveal to double his influence. But anyway, back to our deck. So the reason I swapped in the Starseer is because Starseer has the special ability of recharge predict. So by predicting, which I'll demonstrate here, we're going to get a charge back every time we predict. And prediction is a mechanic that allows us to uh, see the future of the ruins shop. So if it's used before round 3, it simply shows us what the relics are going to be. So I can see now what those are, and that can influence my gameplay. I'm just going to end out my turn by using the Penitent engine here to gain a little bit of influence. The Penitent engine is an interesting cultist. It starts with a negative amount of power, but scales up pretty fast, and also has some unique interactions there where you can use its reveal to get it to -10, and then use cards like the Entropy Acolyte, for example, to grant a character influence to that of a friendly character. So for just a few actions, you can really uh, influence your opponent's abilities. So what I want to do now is I'm actually going to swap the Entropy Acolyte back into play in that Imperial slot. And the reason I want to do this is I'm going to then swap it back out with the Starseer and get another +3. So it used 2 charges, but still decent tempo, because now I can use Starseer's ability, and in this case it's less useful since I just saw what those Veil Shards are. Like the relics is going to be Veil Shard, which gains Veil, Lonely Clown, add a random anomaly to your opponent's hand, or Null Shield Matrix, which grants a character shield for 1 round. But could be more useful in the future. And now, lastly, what I'm going to do here is I am actually going to swap the Entropy Acolyte back out here. And use my last action to swap in the Starseer again. And unfortunately, I kind of tossed the era with that play, but it's less important right now because this deck isn't really as reliant on our Visionary ability. Our Visionary in this deck is the Eternal Steward, and he gives you 2 charges to hyperjump all your allies to any era. Um, and if you read the dev blog, there may be changes coming to the Eternal Steward, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, we're back on our turn here, and now it's the Frontier era, and the relics that we already knew were coming are here now. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to foretell my crisis, which is trade dominion, signaling that I am going to salvage more than my opponent this round. And so what I want to do here is I'm going to buy a Lonely Clown relic. It costs 0, so I'll confirm that. And it consumed a swap, one of my charges. And let's see, the AI is thinking here. Okay. And now I'm going to play the Lonely Clown. So now if I take a look, I tap the AI's name, view its hand, I see it got the mule. Okay, so the mule is a pretty powerful anomaly in that it's going to autoplay and character abilities won't be able to activate. Now I do want to use my character abilities next round. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to um, let's see if I can optimize this more. Um, I think if I use the star seer, it's kind of free in this case. So let me use it on slot A to see what's going to happen after that. So the next thing is guild contract. That's not really so useful for me, so I'm actually going to regenerate that. And then I got a charge back because, again, I predicted. And now I'm going to use this charge to Veil Shard. So this is, maybe a questionable play. Maybe I'll regret this because I am taking a bit of power off of my kind of entropy buff. But I think getting the shard here is quite important. So I'm going to play that, and the turn timer is a little bit bugged. So let me just do this quickly. But essentially, I veiled myself. So now when the mule anomaly comes out of hand, I will not be affected by it, but the AI still will be. And I did solve my trade dominion crisis, so I'm going to get a relic out of it, and I think I'll just go with the null shield matrix this time. All right, so now it's back on my turn, and my entropy acolyte is quite big at this point. So I think what I want to do here is, get the entropy acolyte into the middle area, so that way the frontier zone, so that way I can use its ability to grant 9 power with one action, which is pretty powerful. So I'm trying to think of the most optimal way to do this. Also looking at my relics, I do have Starship Thruster, which will, have an initial cost and, it kind of scales because we want to use this 9. So I'm not going to do that. I think I'll just go for the swap mechanic, which, probably a good idea considering the deck I'm playing. And then yeah, again, it's a little bit of a turn timer bug. I do need to fix that. But we get the Entropy Acolyte back in play, and I'm going to quickly use its ability here. I wasn't able to do it in time, but that's okay. So I ended the Era Frontier with more influence. So I control the Era, and this lets me buy a Relic without using an action. So I think I'm going to get a guild contract, and I want to keep my Entropy Acolyte as big as possible, so I will do it like so. And now that brings us to the start of the Ascendant era. And our reveals happen, and boom, this is the kind of payoff for this deck. The Blissful Heretic, and I'll show you in a second. So the Blissful Heretic, let me just explain what happened quickly. Dida's reveal is to salvage for free, so the AI got a free salvage. It used that to buy a Null Shield Matrix, which it put on its Magistrate Mallow. On our side, the Blissful Heretic is a simple grant me +4 influence for each time you swap this game. So we swapped a lot, and it got a big buff here. And now what we can do, I'm actually going to protect it. In this case, the AI is, a little bit, it probably is not going to try to execution drone, for example, my Blissful Heretic. But if you're playing against another player, I do see that there's an execution drone in the shop letting you purge an opponent's character. So it's a good thing I brought this Null Shield Matrix because I'm going to shield that and then use Entropy Acolyte to grant 34 influence to my Starseer. And, it's a big power play. As the AI's turn, it'll do some, let's see, what does this ability do? Predict barter 1. So, not so useful for the AI. And my Entropy Acolyte is exhausted here, so I can't use that. I could use the Blissful Heretics ability, which would consume the shield. Um, but its ability is if you have failed your crisis this game, grant me +4. And this deck isn't focused on failing your crises, so I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to instead use the Starseer's ability to get an extra charge for next round. And let's take a look at what's underneath the execution drone because I may want to buy that. It's visit sonar lens. Our characters are face up at this time. I don't think it's that useful, so I'm going to regenerate it. And we got two actions. Sorry, two charges. And it's the start of round 6. And so the AI recharged with hyper jump. And what I am going to do here now is use my charges to get the entropy acolyte back in this sort of imperial form. And I think at this point it is maybe more efficient to do that with a thruster, but seems to be a small bug here where I'm not able to. So I guess I will use swaps. A bit odd though. Let me see if there's. Okay, so the other ones are working, but not this. Okay, wormhole also works, so I will buy a wormhole here. And now wormhole's ability is change a character's air without hyper jumping it. So let me play a wormhole and get the entropy acolyte to its imperial form, and then I will. Well, before I use its ability here, I want to get the Starseer in hand. So let me, drop in Viceroy Isha. And because of my tempo advantage, I am able to do these things back to back since the AI is out of actions. And boom, that's a pretty big play there. And then finally, the game's about to end. I will use my guild contract. Out of these, I know Magistrate Mallow has 7 influence, so that's a nice little chunk there. Um, and then for our final action in this game, let's it doesn't matter as much since we're quite strong. Let's get Entropy Acolyte back in here, um, and swap again with the Starseer. I'll have to investigate that. That felt a little bit bugged. Um, but yeah, we control the Era Ascendant, and so it reveals again. And you can see all of our new swaps have given us a huge score advantage there. So I think this time in my rematch against the AI, I should be pretty favored here. Um, Slight visual bug here. But as you can see, the cards in your hand do matter to your score as well. And I was able to win this one. So hopefully this gives you a sense of swap and some of the more complex mechanics in the game.